Welcome to MNG Research, and today we are doing part one of our how to write literature review using AI tools. But one thing that I just want you to understand as we embark on this training program is that literature review is one of the most important aspects in a research project. It is the heartbeat of research. Therefore, it is one of the most challenging sections to write. So when you are developing your literature review, you need to understand certain key important aspects, certain key important readings and debates that are within the specific discipline you are working on. Therefore, we saw it fit to have this kind of program, to have these kind of workshops going on. Hence, writing literature review is one of the key important aspects we want you to master, and we want you to grasp and understand and get to do it better in a more efficient manner. So in this 21st century, one of the biggest challenges, or one of the biggest advantages, I must say, is the emergence of AI. And of course, it's a challenge when people don't know how to utilize it. It's also a challenge when people think AI is something that you can just copy and paste from. But in academia, I think it's a blessing in disguise. You need to understand how to utilize AI in developing your literature review. But before we get into the key steps of how to write literature review using AI tools, we want you to understand the ethical details and the processes and the value of a literature review. Therefore, please pay attention to this session and get to ask questions and do engage us for clarity or any other details you might need us to assist you with. So I will hand over this time to Dr. Mringa to take you through the process and get you to understand some of the most important dynamics that you need to understand when you are developing an effective literature review for your study. Thank you.
Welcome to our first workshop on writing your literature review with AI. What we're going to be talking about is the basics of understanding how to write a literature review before we get into the necessities and the nitty-gritties of writing a literature review using AI tools. First things first, the biggest question in the room is it ethical to use AI in writing research reports, or your master's or your PhD? The answer to that question is emphatically yes. Why? Because you need to put into aspect and consider 6 key things that you need to consider. Firstly, you need to understand the aspect of transparency when you're writing your work or producing content using AI tools. What do I mean by transparency? Researchers ought to ensure that the work that they produce there or that they generate is transparent and meet the ethical standards of writing research before we even introduce AI. So the issue of transparency is very important. Secondly, researchers need to ensure that they validate the content that they generate from AI tools. Thirdly, attribution. You need to make sure that you validate the output generated on ChatGPT. Ensure that it is accurate and relevant to the research topic. That's very important. If specific passages or ideas are directly related or generated by ChatGPT, you need to ensure that those passages are actually attributed to the type of AI model that you use. The issue of ethics should never go unnoticed. It is very important for us to actually be and have in mind the AI ethical review before we generate or before we cascade information to the next reader. Ethics are very important. Does the work produced or content produced by AI tools meets the general ethical standards of conducting research? Ethical institutional review, does it meet those guidelines? Then contextualization. It is very important that when we are generating content on AI tools, we need to ensure that that work is contextually relevant to the context within which the research is being produced or conducted. Then the mitigation of bias. There are different types of biases: gender bias, sexuality bias, race bias, all those biases. Normally and more often than not, the content and the work that is produced on AI tool, because it doesn't fit within the context within which we are conducting that research, it tends to cross the boundaries of biases within specific context. For example, the use of he or she, the sexual words that might be used when you generate that content. So all those things, they need to be put into mind when we are producing or generating content using AI tools. The second aspect, very, very important and crucial, before we get to appropriate the AI tools for writing our literature review, is understanding the actual research process and understanding the basics of writing a literature review. So I'll take you through 5 aspects that you need to consider and that are very important for us to get to effective use of AI technologies for writing our literature review. We spoke about context. So I'm saying to you again, contextual relevance. Your research needs to be contextually relevant. When you are developing a literature review, it needs to be contextually relevant. Then you need to ensure that there is critical evaluation. Researchers involve critical thinking and interpretation of data and literature. So more often than not, AI tools often fall short of the critical analysis aspect. So as researchers, what you need to do is to ensure that you need to come in with your critical thinking skills and actually bring in that critical analysis and aspect into your research. Thirdly, the issue of integration with the human expertise. My argument to you is that more than it displacing the human need within research or in research, the AI tools actually enhances the abilities of a researcher. Therefore, it is very crucial for us to integrate them within the research process. But emphasis should be placed on them being assistants, not them being the researcher and the writer. I also repeat the issue of ethical considerations. Research involves ethical considerations related to participants' rights, data privacy, integrity, etc. More often than not, these are negated and they are also not considered when you are generating content using AI tools. So it's very important to ensure that you bring in your human expertise in that process so that you do not blur the lines or the boundaries of ethical considerations. Lastly is effective communication. Research reports must be communicated, or they must communicate findings, insights, and conclusions to the academic community and to the broader audience. What we have seen over the years is that the AI tools, the content that they generate there, might not and does not always meet or reflect the target audience that they are intended to. As a result, there is often communication breakdown, and when that is the case, your findings or your results are very difficult to be disseminated and to be understood by the targeted audience. Our focus today is on writing a literature review. And again, I'm saying to you that it's very difficult to write a literature review using AI if you do not understand what the actual literature review is without the AI tools. So I'm going to take you through a few steps to help you understand what is a literature review and what is the importance of a literature review and why you should have a literature review in your study. Firstly, a literature review provides a context for the research. It assists you to summarize the literature that has been done, that is the work that has been done by other researchers. Secondly, it helps you identify the gaps within the literature. Therefore, you find the rationale and the justification for the need of your study. Then, thirdly, the literature review assists you in identifying and developing a theoretical framework. You would understand what a theoretical framework we did in our next workshop. We'll be focusing on writing a theoretical framework. So you can watch on that one and wait for it. When it is out, it will assist you in understanding what a theoretical framework is. Thirdly, a literature review will assist you in identifying and developing your methodology. More often than not, I tell researchers that you don't need to invent a new methodology for your study. If you read extensively, you'll find research that is similar, more or less, to yours. And you can just borrow and appropriate the same methodology that has been used and contextualize it to your study, therefore making your work simple. Then critical evaluation. Literature review involves the critical evaluation, the quality, the relevance, the reliability of sources that are consulted. So this will assist you in assessing the strengths and limitations of previous research, therefore identifying the biases and the gaps in literature, and give credence to your work or to your study that you're doing. Then, more than just summarizing what previous research has done, you need to synthesize and analyze. You need to synthesize sources, finding comparison, similarities and differences within the sources or the literature that you have done. Then lastly, you need to ensure that your literature review has proper citation and attribution. And these are very important aspects of it. To close, in this section where we're talking about focusing on literature review in a traditional means, I'll tell you that your literature should focus on at least your literature should not be more than 5 years old. That's very important, unless it is classical literature. Alright, thank you for joining the part 1, introducing you to writing literature review using AI. So I want to emphasize to you, before we get into the second section of our workshop, that the biggest question that we've answered in this presentation is that yes, it's ethical to use AI in doing your research. However, you need to make sure that the 7 aspects and the 6 aspects we spoke about, issues of ethics, issues of accuracy, relevance, they are there too. Most importantly, you need to humanize. The ethical consideration they speak about, that you as a human being or as a researcher, you're actually the leader of the research. And having AI tools doing the job for you, it's not as good as you doing the work because it has shortfalls. So it should be used as an assistant rather than it being the writer. So as you move forward, preparing to do your literature review, you need to make sure that you take the lead and allow the AI tools to assist you in that process.